don't have nostalgia for Dark Souls 1. I never even played it when it was originally released in 2011. And yet, despite only experiencing it last year, the world of Lordran has left an indelible mark in my memory. Dark Souls 1 transcends being just a game. It's an experience, one defined by its beautifully haunting atmosphere, masterfully interconnected world, punishing combat, and so much more. Beside an incredibly vague intro cutscene establishing the ancient lore of its world, you're pretty much dropped in with no exposition, and as you wander the destroyed halls of the Northern Asylum and begin to meet your first set of characters, you're left questioning if the world you're walking through ever even truly existed. These are ruins of a civilization that feel more like a long-forgotten story rather than a concrete reality. But what makes this dreamlike world so unforgettable for me isn't the lore, it's the design. Lordran is a masterfully constructed labyrinth, with Metroidvania-like connections between its areas, all the way from Undead Burg, Blighttown, to the Duke's Archives. You're transported to a world straight out of a fairy tale, albeit with a much darker tone. Looking past its grotesque enemies, crumbling architecture, and the overarching themes of decay, death, and despair, there's something so strangely cozy about Dark Souls. Maybe it's kind of ridiculous to compare it to something like Stardew Valley or Minecraft, but I think there's a case to be made there. The numerous bonfires, friendly faces, cozy soundtracks, and even the way you learn to navigate this hostile place. It all carries a strange warmth that lingers long after your adventure is done. Almost every design choice in the game serves to benefit this incredible ambiance. One particular choice is how sparing the title is with music. Outside of safe zones like Firelink Shrine, Guinevere's Chamber, or the Daughter of Chaos's Abode, you typically only hear raw ambience in most locales, but a prime area where Dark Souls utilizes music is during its many boss fights. And the contrast of the game's typical silence is sure to punch you in the face when a hulking monster starts sprinting at you, with the backing of an orchestral choir.
Boy, what the hell, boy?
However, in most areas, the screeches of enemies, clanging of weapons, and echoing footsteps sets the atmospheric stage, and sometimes, even the silence serves to amplify the feeling of certain locations. One of the most mind-blowing things about Dark Souls' world is just how interconnected it is. I didn't even realize until gathering free cam footage that the Valley of the Drakes is directly connected to Darkroot Basin, or that Blighttown is technically visible from Firelink Shrine. Every zone feels sort of self-contained while you're playing, but in reality, it all weaves together in more ways than you can imagine. Dark Souls isn't a traditional open-world game, but the structure is just about as open as can be. The first act of the game especially can be tackled in just about whatever order you wish. Most people take the intended path, Undead Burg, then Parish, and then from there into the depths and beyond. But most of this isn't actually forced upon you. In this last playthrough, I went from the Burg straight into Darkroot Basin, and only loop back around to the Parish later. The freedom to carve your own route makes every run feel slightly different, and it definitely rewards curiosity in a way that most games aren't able to. Lordran has the classic dichotomy between the dark subterranean depths and the heavenly realm above. Starting at the very top, the highest point in the entire map is where my personal favorite locale resides, the Duke's Archives, a massive library and panopticon prison mixed into one. Venturing down resides Anor Londo, the city of the gods. Despite its strikingly opulent and beautiful appearance, a deafening, haunting silence accompanies you as you explore this long-abandoned capital. At the base of the city's exterior walls rests Sen's Fortress, followed by the Undead Parish and Undead Burg. This is sort of the middle-class area in Lordran, both in living condition and literal placement in the world's vertical stack. The parish was evidently home to a strong military presence, with a range of knights and soldiers that still patrol its halls, and even armored boars are included amongst their forces. Moving over to the Burg, its lower living quarters get a bit sketchy, from back alley thieves to a particularly infamous boss fight. After this, we find ourselves at Firelink Shrine, the central hub to the world. Various characters you meet throughout your journey in Lordran will gather here, from fellow adventurers to traveling merchants. It doesn't just stop at human NPCs either though. The giant crow who plucked you from the Northern Asylum even makes its nest here, and they can facilitate your travel back and forth whenever you wish. Firelink is also home to many secrets, from hidden chests to various shortcuts. All of this and more makes Firelink an incredibly cozy hub, and its impeccable soundtrack is just the cherry on top. As we journey beneath Firelink Shrine, you'll find the depths, a fairly standard medieval sewer system, home to tight passages and oversized rats. Next, you arrive in Blighttown, with its characteristic sickly green hue. Blighttown's residents were banished amongst the lowest tiers of Lordran's vertical caste, with its improvised structures built aside the very buttresses holding up the rest of the city. Deeper still are the truly hellish zones, Lost Izalith, New Londo, and the Ash Lake, each one increasingly bleak in its own way. There are some sub-areas in between these layers that I didn't mention, so do let me know in the comments if I didn't cover your favorite locale in this video. None of what I've covered so far would matter if the gameplay housed within Lordran's world wasn't up to snuff. So what exactly does Dark Souls 1 offer in that regard? I know what you're thinking. Dark Souls gameplay didn't just impact players, it single-handedly popularized an entirely new genre of video games. There's tons that can be said about Dark Souls' gameplay, and for the most part, I'll leave it to those who are more fit to cover that topic. AKA people who've played the rest of the series. I will say this though, Dark Souls isn't a rage game. Brutal difficulty is an inherent feature of its combat, but it all contributes towards an overarching cycle of initial failure to final triumph. And this core philosophy is found in every inch of Lordran. You just can't be afraid of dying when playing a Souls game. It's inevitable. Every failure and death provides another data point against your foe, whether that foe is a monster, boss fight, or even the world itself. Combat alone isn't what makes Dark Souls' gameplay so good. It's also how it interacts with the world. Have you ever fought an enemy in a tight hallway and had your sword clang against a wall? Yeah, same here. Dark Souls forces you to adapt, and even consider the surrounding environment when crafting your battle plan. The narrow alleys of the Burg, the rickety wooden platforms of Blighttown, and the cathedral-sized arenas of enemies in Anor Londo. These various environments all have to be approached differently. Moving entirely off of combat, I'm sure you can already surmise my thoughts about exploration in Lordran simply from the praise I've given its world design. Dark Souls is one of those games that you wish you could play for the first time again. The sense of discovery you get stumbling upon each of the game's locations and learning how to traverse them is something that few games will ever match. It's debatable how much of it was intentional, but Dark Souls also harkens back to the early days of gaming, specifically with how little it explains to you. A good comparison point is the first Legend of Zelda game. In both Dark Souls and that game, you're kind of just thrown in, get a weapon, you meet a character or two, and you're sent off. And this lack of explanation also lends itself well to secrets, like illusory walls that lead to special areas or treasure. Remember Ash Lake? That entire area is hidden behind an illusory wall, and these walls basically have zero visual cue. You'll find some, and you'll 100% miss others. Missable secrets like this promote such a fun environment to discuss your findings with your friends and other fellow players. There's even whole boss fights hidden behind relatively well-hidden secrets, like Gwendolyn, who as far as I know, only really gets hinted at by killing Guinevere and exposing the fact that she was an illusion. Something that you typically wouldn't feel like doing in the game. But Dark Souls rewards curiosity in that way. And one more thing, but I find it to be very important. The way that Dark Souls handles its story, and in particular, how little it forces one onto you. Outside of the cryptic opening cutscene that I mentioned earlier, and the occasional NPC interaction, the game pretty much leaves you in the dark. There's no exposition dumps and no unskippable dialogue. Instead, Dark Souls neatly tucks most of its narrative into item descriptions, environmental details, and fragmented conversations. And ultimately, it's left for you to piece it together if you so choose. You could play through the entire game and come away with pretty much no understanding of the lore behind Gwyn, the First Flame, or the Undead Curse. I won't lie, I know nothing about Souls lore, but everything else about the series has left me so enamored that I really don't mind being left in the dark currently. Dark Souls creates a world that feels less like a story being fed to you, and more like an ancient myth you explore in real time. And for me personally, that lack of narrative handholding only makes Lordran feel more mysterious and more dreamlike. If you guys enjoyed this video, leaving a like or subscribing to the channel would be a huge help. One of my internal goals is to consistently release 2 videos a month, and every bit of support makes it that much easier to do so. I've also recently set up a Ko-Fi page, so if you'd like to directly support the channel and help me on my journey towards doing YouTube full-time, that's the best place to do it right now. Even just watching, liking, or leaving a comment means the world to me. Thank you so much for sticking around until the very end, and I'll see you guys in the next video.